quarterly content training for quarter four. I am Tasha Frazier. I am one half of the elementary team, along with my partner.
Yes, we met earlier. I am Valerie Bocci, the other one half. I always love to tell people that Tasha is my better half in this relationship. I have to give her kudos where kudos are due.
I appreciate it the same. We work very well together to make sure that we are providing the best service for you all. And today we're going to make sure that you have plenty to walk away with, to have conversations about with your colleagues that weren't able to make it. If you're here with your colleagues, you're going to have a lot of conversation about what new and exciting resources you can use to plan to ensure that all of your students are successful. So we've introduced ourselves already, and you'll be able to see us. I can't see you, but I'm sure that your cameras are on and ready to get started.
I love this one. This is a ton of fun. We've been very fortunate to be traveling around and visiting our Montessori campuses this second semester and learning quite a bit about what goes on in that Montessori environment. So kudos if anybody's with us from Montessori. If you want to come off mute and just say hello to yourselves, we'd love to see you again. Do we have any Montessori educators with us?
I'm Montessori from Eduardo Mata, Nicole Odell.
Oh, yes. I remember visiting your space.
Wonderful, yes. And so we've been learning a lot of great things. And we have discovered they have all of these geometric shapes that represent different parts of speech. And we were just like awed by all of that one. And so if you want to think for a second, when you take a look at that red ball, what part of speech do you think that red, rolling, very vibrant ball might represent regarding parts of speech? Anybody have any ideas?
A verb.
A verb. And why? Go ahead and explain to us some of your thinking as to why possibly it could be a verb. What's connecting in your brain?
Like a slide and rolls.
Yep, it has a lot of action to it. It's going to move around, it's going to slide, it's going to roll. And so these are some great fun things that we're learning with our Montessori friends the second semester. And so we kind of thought we would tie it in since a lot of our grade levels are doing geometry and geometric shapes. And so if you can think of a shape, there's a few on the board for you, and have it describe your school year so far and why. Now we do know that red one could be a verb because it's rolling around and doing things of that nature. But if you were to pick a shape to describe your school year, not a part of speech, that was a different activity, but your school year, what shape would you use to describe your school year? And if you want to put it in the chat, go ahead. If you want to come off of mute and just talk to us, go ahead and do that too. We'd love to hear how you're going to use a shape to describe your school year so far. We've got a cone, we've got a cube, and we have a red ball. Today, we're going to go over a few things with you. We're going to see what that module looks like for all of our grade levels, K-2, in kind of a fly-by overview. We're going to talk about data because everything that we do is data-driven with Dallas ISD. We have gone back to unpacking the standards because in order to really teach our kiddos what they need to learn, it's not just what program we're using, but it's really what does the state of Texas want them to get out of that skill. So we're going to unpack some of those standards to see what those skills should be. And we're going to talk to you just a little bit about how you can use some resources to help you in small group instruction. It is a full packed session.
It is. Okay, so for our learning objective, let's see. Miss Neal, Sandra Neal, could you read our learning objective? Everybody get ready to unmute yourself. Okay. Let's see. Miss Schoolcraft, could you read the learning objective while Miss Neal is trying to unmute herself for that?
I can describe how to use resources to impact learning.
Yes, so that will be our learning outcome. And with that, we're going to make sure that you are experiencing the support needed for in the classroom. So thank you, Ms. Schoolcraft. All right, so with that being said, we want to make sure that with everything we do, we provide effective instruction. So we will be looking at the quarter four tier 1 resources and how we're going to ensure that all students, especially our at-risk students, receive equitable access and opportunity by way of the resources that we have for our small group as well, and with excellence. All right, Valerie.
Yes, our target for our district is to have 90% of our students on grade level in regards to their performance. So that's 90% of our babies on grade level. Out of that 90, 60 of them are going to meet. So for those of you that have that experience, whether it's with your children or whether it's with teaching at a different grade level, we do have that meet approaches masters in regards to STAR performance. So we're talking about a meet performance level, which means you're going to meet the grade level standards. You're going to perform right there on the grade level. And then out of that 90% that will be on grade level, we're going to take a piece of that pie and 30% of them are going to master. Those are our district goals. So again, 90% of our learners being on grade level, 60% will be right there, 30% are going to be there and higher in the master performance level.
All right. And we know that you all are going to ensure by any means necessary that our students at the grades 3 on up are making sure that they're receiving those supports to be at that level. And then you all have increased student achievement with the MAP data from the winter assessment. So our goal and our role is to help you with every thing possible with instructional delivery and design. And this is why you all are here, to look at some of the resources that we've designed for accessibility and give feedback. All right, so what are we going to use during our session? Okay, we have some session resources. As anytime we have a training, we want to make sure you have some takeaways and you have resources at your fingertips to use. So if you can look at the bit.ly here, and we'll put that in the chat as well. We have the resource page. On this resource page, we will have several links that you'll be toggling back and forth throughout the session. So we're going to give you all a chance to navigate through that. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat and we can help you with that. So we'll give you all a little bit of wait time for that. Next part is one of my favorite parts. I'm excited about this one. We're going to look at the module overviews. So if you've been to any of your QCT trainings in the past, we've shared what's going to be covered, and you all have been able to look at our quarterly content training calendar, our quarterly calendars. So about a week ago, we spoke with some of the representatives with Great Minds, and they developed a resource that you all will be able to use to navigate, to look at the learning progression, the model progression. Like, what do some of the models look like when you're getting ready to teach a module? So how many of you have come to a strategy or a module that you have not been exposed to prior to this year? Put in the chat or raise your hand like you've learned something new, like, oh my goodness, I'm used to using the standard algorithm and this is a different way. So what we're going to look at is we're going to navigate through this resource to see what models will we encounter within the modules. Now, some of you will have 2 modules to look at, and some of you will be able to navigate through 1. So I want you to keep this in mind. If you look at your resource page, on the right of your resource page, you will see a Great Minds Support Center link is highlighted in yellow. Go ahead and click on that link, and it's going to take you to a page that looks like this. You're going to navigate to where it says additional resources. And actually, this page will take you right to it. I'm going to do the click points for you. So actually, let me take you there. Okay. Whew, I didn't mean to highlight all of those things. Okay, it just got away from me. All right. So this is the portion that we're going to look at. When you click on the additional resources, if you scroll down on the page on the left, it's going to take you to Eureka Math Model Progression Resource. Once you get there, click on Access the Resource.
I did put a direct link in the chat for everybody.
Yes.
So you may have some people shortcutting.
Okay, there it is. It's delayed. It's a Google slides, a Google site. So with so many people on it, was just getting overwhelmed. Okay. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to navigate through this resource, and it's labeled by each grade level, as you can see here. Now this one took us directly to it. So once it takes you there, we have two different ways to get to it. We're gonna go to the Google Sites. The direct link probably took you here. Let us know if you have any questions getting there. So once you're here, you're gonna scroll up and you're going to go to your grade level. Click on your grade level. When you get there, for example, you're gonna go to kindergarten. For kindergarten, you're going to be looking at Module 5. You'll be concluding Module 5 when we start quarter 4 and Module 6. So kindergarten, you'll be working on the end of Module 5 and Module 6. First grade, you will be going to Module 6. You'll be looking at Module 6. And there are 2 lessons in Module 5 that we're going to look at. So you can go to the very end of Module 5. You'll look at time for Module 5. Those, you only have 2 or 3 days for that. You have 2 days of time. And then Module 6, all of Module 6. Okay. Second grade, you'll be looking at 2 modules, Module 7 and Module 8. So let's just click on one, for example. I'm going to click on, you can hover right over the state and click on your module. When you see your different topics there, you can navigate with the arrow, or you can click on the topic. And it's going to show you your topic, the title, the lesson, and it'll show you what resources or structures you'll be using in that module. I don't know if you all are going to be as excited as I am, but I was using the family tips page and looking at some of those modules. You still can use those, but this goes lesson by lesson. Okay, so who can tell us what you're going to do when we put you in breakout rooms? What are we going to do in breakout rooms?
We're going to go to, well, I'm second grade, so I'm going to do Module 7 and Module 8.
Mm-hmm. And what are you going to look at when you're looking at the slides?
I'm going to be looking at what kind of support that we have for each lesson. What's the takeaway of that lesson?
Okay, that's it. That's it. So some of you have a little bit more to do, but we just want to give you a touch point and an additional resource that will help guide you and plan you, help to plan with the lesson. Okay, so you'll be working in a breakout room. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I see more faces. I'm excited about that. All right, so we're going to start with kinder. And what did you learn about some of the new structures that your kinders are going to be exposed to? You can share your screen. Hopefully you still have that person that's going to do the reporting for you all.
Okay, so we're going to be learning about, or we're going to be doing more work with teen numbers and showing how the tens, so for example, the number 13, how there's 1 10 and 3 ones. So we're going to be doing a lot more work with that and representing tens in lots of different ways. We're going to be doing more work with arrays, circles, just towers, different representations of tens and ones.
That's it. You capture what you're going to expose your students to. So it was a new format that we were not familiar with because it was just isolating what we're going to cover in each lesson. So hopefully the more you get used to opening up that document and skimming through it, that you'll be more familiar. So, but you got it. Thank you so much for sharing, Ms. Terry, with that. So with that, I want to compliment what her group shared for kindergarten. So here are the hide 0 cards. You need to make sure that you have those readily available, where you're going to talk about 110 and so many ones there. So you'll have it in with the numbers and also with the 10 frames in the dots. So our students will become more familiar with that. Now, when I was looking at the different shapes, the students are going to be exposed in Module 6. Did you all notice what these are? It could be anyone outside of kinder. Do you all know what these kind of represent? Especially this one. It's called a net. And typically we're working on this in 4th grade. So the
Yeah.
students have to decompose a figure into different shapes. They have to know what other shapes come out of this configuration. And so they're just having to draw the line. If we decompose and break down this shape here, these are the different shapes that will make it up. So you do have the pattern blocks that the students can be familiar with. Also, some additional helpful tips as you're teaching, keep in mind from our winter map data, when working with numbers and counting, we were at 60%. So we need to continue to show growth that isn't as low as some of our other skills from map data district-wide, but we were at 60% with that. And then we'll look at another skill as we get into geometry. So some things to keep at hand is to label objects in the classroom. They'll be labeling, counting to 10, just as you stated, also working with the teams. Have beans handy. I know we've been using beans and rice in different grade levels throughout the year. So those are some things to have in mind and in place, especially for Module 5. The standard says that the students need to be able to label and recognize shapes in the environment. So think about the shapes that the students will be exposed to according to the standard, and then make sure that your class is labeled. So if you don't have any cones in your class or cylinders, work on getting those real life objects and write the name of it on there so they can be familiar with seeing those in real life, because that's the part of the standard that our students were struggling with. And we don't know what those problems look like on the map test, but that was it. And also geoboards. You are not the only grade level that's working with the geoboards. Those are in your kit. Also, your geometric shapes are in your kit. The modeling clay, I believe that is a resource is also in your kit. How many of you have seen those? So it should be modeling clay. I don't know if that's the exact picture, but it's like Play-Doh, because they're going to be constructing different shapes. So you need to make sure that is available as well. What about first grade? So as that comes to you, we want to think about that vertical alignment that you might be able to share with kindergarten to support that. Okay.
In
So
kindergarten, oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
In kindergarten, I know we use the solid shapes and the 2D shapes, 2D and 3D, as part of their
Mhm.
calendar routine so that they're really
Okay.
familiar with those before we're, continuing to practice with them in Eureka. And they have to name real world objects, like they give clues and they
Mhm.
have to think outside of the box of what would they see in the real world that would be that shape, and then the kids have to identify the shape. So that's hopefully supporting first grade learners.
Oh, that definitely should. And also, thank you, Ms. Ritchie, for sharing that. Maybe you can have the students to bring in some of those hard to find shapes and create a museum in the classroom of those shapes. So that way you can get the parents involved with that. So let's look at this standard for geometry, which is Module 6, and let's unpack it. So we have this first illustration here. This is a snippet of the quarter 4. And as you can see, the knowledge and skill statement, this belongs under geometry and measurement. It says the student applies mathematical process standards to analyze attributes of 2-dimensional shapes and 3-dimensional solids to develop generalizations about their properties. And with that, they have to understand it in the real life. So we're going to look at the 2-dimensional shapes, including which shapes are we need to make sure we have our students exposed to. Miss Lacey, what does Kinder need to make sure they have? I know she's looking for the unmute button. I'm going to help her with that. Circles, triangles, rectangles, and squares as special rectangles. So especially when we're looking at a square, we need to also call it a rectangle, so they know it's a special rectangle once you start talking about the attributes. So if we look at what we're going to be covering, we're looking at 2-dimensional shapes. So topic A, dealing with flat shapes, that's 2-dimensional. They're calling it flat shapes. They need to describe it, build flat shapes, and then they're going to compose the solids using that. Remember, we talked about the net being able to decompose it and compose it, so they have to create it and dismantle it. They're also going to be working with describing the shapes with the ordinal numbers, like skip counting with those, composing and decomposing shapes. So they're going to be building and breaking apart the different shapes, building and breaking apart, and having different shapes compose one larger shape. Now, I also want to bring to your attention that this is not the first time our students were exposed to working with two-dimensional figures. So if we had to unpack this, we were looking at just in general, just shapes, just a variety of 2D shapes. So earlier in the year, in October, we were working with a specific shape such as triangles, rectangles. I don't know if you can see that, but that was hexagon. So these were the specific shapes that our students should be familiar with. So you can bring back the knowledge that you've done in Module 2 as you introduce these shapes in, for composition and decomposition in Module 6. So we want you to keep that in mind, that they're already familiar with the names of the shapes, but now we're bringing those different shapes together to make larger shapes. All right. And on the assessment, we were at the 62% of our students did well with that. Okay, now for quarter 4, first grade, who would like to share?
I can share.
Okay.
We looked through the topics and realized that we're basically covering again all the topics that we've already gone through, with the exception of a few. Most of them it's topics we've already covered, except now we're our numbers are getting bigger. So it's over 40, which in the beginning we were adding or subtracting, you know, like within 40, but now it's over 40. We are introducing coins, which is something different. We've talked about it already during fluency. When
Yes.
we're counting by tens, like practicing counting by tens, and how 10 pennies make 1 dime. So 10 ones, you know, make a 10. But now we're diving into like decomposing coins. And another thing that was brought up was we're gonna touch on income and responsible spending. So needs,
Yes.
wants, saving, and that. But yeah.
And with that, you're adding the operation of addition and subtraction. So it'll be given in a word problem, and they will have to solve with that within 100. So here's some additional resources that you need to have available. You talked about the coins. When you're working with time, because you'll be at the end of the module 5, you'll be looking at, if you need additional help with time, look at the fluency from module 6, lesson 29 to help you with that. And also to help with the students with the place value, if you can post an anchor chart, because they're going to need that for comparing the numbers. So that will be part of the lessons too. So you can have 2 different place value charts so they can see the value on top of each other vertically, and that will help. So with time, we were at 42%, and that's why we have that additional fluency portions there for you. So also with time, and we want to make sure that you know that they just have to know the half hour and the hour using analog and digital clocks. So the resource that's provided with this lesson for the unpack, you can work with an hour on some days and you work with a half hour, then combine them. But you can look at the template that is in lesson 29 to help you with that. Okay. And let's look at second grade. Who's going to share from second grade?
I can, that's fine. We just talked about what we were teaching. We didn't dive into like the parts we were using to teach, but we're starting with 3 days of data and graphing, and then we are going straight into coins and bills for a while. Recognizing them, knowing their value, word problems with coins, stuff like that. And then we're going into, well, we're continuing with financial literacy, consumers, producers, borrowing, all of that, and right into measurement. Module 7's full of all sorts of stuff.
It is.
Writing the measurement with customary and metric units, estimation, drawing, comparing. And then we were also supposed to talk about Module 8. And so Module 8 is attributes of geometric shapes, going into composite shapes and fractions, and then going into application of fractions to tell time. So it's a full last quarter for second grade with lots and lots of new.
It really is, and leading right up into math. So you can see for data analysis, we were at 48%. And I do want to let you all know that the terms are, I got these terms from the parent tips sheet to help you with that. If you're still trying to find which vocabulary terms I need to make sure that my students are exposed to, these are brads to help with making clocks if they need help with that, with time. And if you want to take a picture of some resources that you need to make sure you have readily available, and you will have to get the brads and the toothpicks on your own for that. Okay. Woo, that was a handful. So in the chat, if you can tell us about this resource and how that's going to help you with that. I want to highlight for second grade that we were at the 46th percentile. And so, yes, you did say that we're going to be working with the data with picture graphs and bar graphs with intervals of 1 or more. And that's what you'll be doing for the first 3 days. So really highlight what some deficiencies are, and those lessons are combined. And on the IPC, we did give some suggestions on how you can make sure that they're understanding the picture graphs and the bar graphs. And so with the unpacking the standards, we talked about that after you shared the resources. There is a video that is on your resource page if you want more information and continue to progress with unpacking the standards. So we just have that link for you there, and that is on the left, that is in the center in the lime green portion on your resource page for that. So you get to go back to your team again. We're going to look at what resources can we use for tier 2 and 3 instruction. You all already know which some of our load standards are. We have time, we have place value that we've been working with. We just want you to navigate on using iReady. Just select at least one lesson with your team on for a resource or a skill and standard that you can use for the upcoming quarter. So this one was taken from second grade. They're looking at time, how to tell and write time. And you will go to Clever, you'll navigate to your grade level, and then this is a teacher resource, teacher-led activity. So if one person can share their screen as they navigate through Clever, and I want you all to go and select based upon one of the low standards that has been proven to be low district-wide. So we'll just give you a few minutes to look at this. Hopefully you all have at least one lesson for your small group instruction now. And if you could share in the chat which lesson you all selected, that everyone can just share in the chat, and I'm going to select a grade level to share.
Well, she shared
Yes,
a screen,
yes.
and we were looking at borrowing money and financial literacy. And we had some iReady training, but I think this was a quicker way to just get right to a lesson. And I saw, though, we talked about how the lesson is like, you said 30 seconds or less. You saw the lesson is like 20 to 25 minutes. And so we were trying to figure out when to put that in. When can we get to that 20 to 25 minutes? Because it had the sheets for the kids, had the whole lesson. But just, it's just when do you put that in? And we do it.
You might have to chunk it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you might have to chunk it so you're not doing all of it, but that's when you're pulling students. So these lessons are the ones that you're inputting into PowerSchool because they have to be teacher-led. So the teacher-led lessons are the ones that you're going to prove that you work with the students individually outside of them working on the computer adapted program. So that's why we wanted you to select those, but you're able to use it because it's scripted, and that's what the MTSS has to be research proven and scripted for that. So if you need to modify some of the numbers, but they have the different levels, the below level, above level, and at grade level. So that's a start. You don't have to do every single piece, or it might be over 2 days if you have to. So thank you for sharing that. When you're supporting the success of all students, It requires having an effective intervention program in place to address learning difficulties as soon as they occur. And that's why we wanted to make sure we navigated through the iReady resource to help you all with that. Okay, so think about some takeaways from today's session. We've also shared the feedback form in the chat. What did you take away from today's session, whether it was the instructional hints that we shared, some things you need to have, unpacking the standards, looking at what's covered. If you covered it in module 2, now you're at 6. So just in the chat, just tell us what were some takeaways that you're going to have. As you all are working through that, we also want to invite you to our virtual meeting. We had a couple of people this past week, so we will be having some more opportunities where you can join us online during the day.